Okay, what do you guys think of the opposite side part? It has been forever since I parted my hair on the other side, partly because I have this just aggressive cowlick right here, which is why it's doing like the whoopty thing that kind of splits the middle. This is also the reason I stopped doing bangs, is because this cowlick is so aggressive. It would just like, it shows all the time. And so I parted my hair on the other side for so long because I didn't want to have to deal with the cowlick all the time. But I thought about changing it up. The cowlick might bother me. Hi, I'm poet and writer Case Spivey, and today I wanted to talk about Strange the Dreamer, which is a book that I absolutely adored. And I recently have been catching back up in my watch later list, and I watched Kate Kavanaugh's video about Strange the Dreamer, in which she hated the prologue. So what I want to talk about is my defense of the prologue of Strange the Dreamer. Before I get into my defense of prologues, I want to have a little disclaimer. I always read the prologue in a book. I always have read the prologues for books. I don't have like a strong reason why, it's part of the story. I'm not necessarily going to remember the first couple chapters by the time I get halfway through the story. Like, if you want to set up the mood for me a little bit early, like get me into the tone, I'm there for that. I love that. I obviously think there are prologues that do a better job and a worse job, and I definitely think that setting up the tone is one of the best things a prologue can do. I know some people, such as Kate Kavanaugh, typically skip prologues or dislike prologues. Cora's being crazy. And so I am coming at this from kind of the opposite perspective to begin with. Second is a warning. This has to have spoilers in it. This will be a spoiler-filled video. If you have not read Strange the Dreamer, I'm going to talk about the big twist at the end. If you're waiting, if you haven't read it, you probably also didn't watch Kate's video, which I am going to link down below in case anyone's interested. Like, her video is great. I just wanted to talk in opposition to her feelings about the prologue and to some other people's feelings about the prologue and to her feelings about the book in general. I thought Strange the Dreamer was wonderful. That's my other disclaimer. I loved the book, loved Muse of Nightmares. Let's talk about the prologue. The prologue for Strange the Dreamer very much sets up the tone, but it also depicts the death of one of the main characters, Sarai. Sarai was the character that I really attached to. I loved everything about her. Laszlo I could give or take. He was fine, but I didn't love him the way I loved Sarai, and I was invested in her deeply. The interesting thing about having read the prologue to begin with is complete misdirection. The prologue misdirected me in a really key way that was very clear that Kate Kavanaugh did not have the same experience reading it because she had skipped the prologue. The prologue set me up to know that one of the blue people with bright red hair was going to or had died. And when we go into the book and we go into Sarai's story, they emphasize very hard how similar she looks to her mother. And they emphasize very hard how her mother died and how her mother would stand on that ledge and all these things. And so in the back of my head, I was like, oh, they already told us how the mother died. We already saw the mother's death. Like, I was anticipating getting confirmation of that first scene in the prologue the entire time. I was so focused on the fact that we were going to get the breadcrumbs for how it had led up to her mother dying. And to be fair, that sort of carried on to book 2, where I was like, but that could have been her mother. Like, how did her mother die then? The misdirection was so strong. I was so focused on that. I did not guess the other plot twist till real late in the game. I didn't guess the actual plot twist until well after, shoot, what's the friend's name? Thyone? I don't know how I was supposed to pronounce it. I think I said it Tyrone in my head, but there's no R. Until he had long guessed what was going on, and then I clued in because I was so focused on this other thing, and I was so in denial that it could be Sarai because of the way they kept describing her likeness to her mother. But Kate Kavanaugh picked up on Laszlo's big thing, that he was also one of the God Spawn, pretty early on. And the main thing that the prologue did was to misdirect me so that I was looking for something else. She felt like the prologue was to tell you, oh, something's going to happen, but I was so convinced that something had already happened. I wasn't paying attention to the fact that obviously Laszlo was going to be one of them. It's a clever beginning. It's a clever beginning to shoot you off in one direction. I also, because that had happened, was so clued into the details describing her versus her mother. And I was so focused on that. The Sarai really became someone that I cared for more deeply than all of the other characters. And I think that made her death hit that much harder. I was so invested in her. I was so devastated when she died. I was completely in disbelief. I went back to the prologue after she fell off the building and was like, no, 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 but that's how her mother died. I know. They had set us up for it. I mean, is it just me? Was I the only one who was like fully, I put the blinders on for myself. I was so captivated by the story. I was not paying attention when all of the big moments happened, and I think it's because of the way she set up that gorgeous prologue. I mean, it did all of the other things I love in a prologue anyway. It set up the mood and the tone just beautifully. Like, the writing in that prologue is so stunning. Like, someone should sing it. Someone should sing the prologue like a ballad. Please, any of these like amazing singers who do the songs in the stairwells, can one of you just put that to music? And it would be stunning. I think the prologue in this case added to the story in a way that is completely different from how the most prologues add to the story. Most prologues give you a little bit of background and insight, and because I was expecting that, here I was thinking we were seeing the past, but no, we were seeing the future all along. And it hit us devastating, and I was so impressed. Did any of the rest of you feel that way? Is it just me? Was I the only one who was like, oh, the moths are like a sign of her daughter because she's gonna manifest later? I don't know. Something else though I do want to talk about is the fact that people keep bringing up, when it comes to Strange the Dreamer, the way like, and Kate Kavanaugh put it this way, like nothing happens, that you can't like plot out the plot points, that it doesn't follow like Save the Cat method. And I think it bothers me how wrapped up people get in Western style story format. AuthorTube is very keen on things like the plot beats and like Save the Cat, and like, yes, that is an important thing to learn. Or even like the Pixar method, which I guess also comes down. Save the Cat is kind of the same thing, like the hero's journey. All of these things have these like distinct plot points that you hit and that creates a satisfying story. The problem with that is, it's kind of like rhyming poetry. Someone could do it masterfully where you don't even notice like the mechanic behind it. You don't even notice the rhyme scheme. And other people can do it where it's like da 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 da. People do the Save the Cat method very, very well. But when everyone kind of is looking for it and planning on it and like taking it apart and like fitting it into every story, a lot of those stories kind of get samey. And another problem with it is, it's a very Western style of writing. There are other styles of writing a story. Strange the Dreamer doesn't fit into this like heavy plot-based narrative where there's a beginning, middle, end. It's telling a different kind of story. It's very character-based. It's very emotion-based. It's very settled in these characters based on things that happened in the past and the traumas that happened to these people and working through it. And it's determined to keep us in a dream and also to break and shatter a dream simultaneously. It's a beautiful story structure, but it's the kind of thing that, yeah, you don't see in a lot of Western literature. It's one of the reasons it's so amazing. It's also a reason people really like Haruki Murakami stories, but that some people really don't vibe with them. Like, you're not gonna get just a ABC plot points, like perfect little story arc from a Murakami story. That's not what he's writing, and that's not something that is as common in more Asian style writing, especially in Japanese style writing. It's one of the things that makes Japanese movies something that people either love or hate, where there's big open moments where things aren't always just like headed towards the action, where things aren't always headed towards a resolution, where things don't end up okay. Yes, Strange the Dreamer is very much setting up, it must be a duology. The first book sets up the second book. That's how a duology works, you guys. Yes, we do hit probably the climax of the overall story arc right in the middle of the two of them. That's one way of telling a story. Like, it's not to the story's detriment that you can't write a book report on it in the way that you would normally write a book report on a story that does follow a very specific kind of story structure that a lot of Western stories do. Like there are other choices, there's other things. You don't have to have a 3-act structure. It works, and it has worked for many things, but not everything has a 3-act structure. I think it's one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough, is how kind of we get centered in this one way of thinking, in this one style, and there are so many to choose from that the popularity of one sort of starts to outshadow the others, and people don't really critically think about, like, well, why is this working or isn't this working? Like, why do prologues sometimes work or not work? And sometimes, yes, it is just your personal preference. It is just like, what things do you pick up in a story? But maybe you're like me and you don't remember the first like couple chapters of the story by the time you get halfway through. But let's also think about, like, I will bet you your favorite part of your favorite book is not the beginning. I'll bet you your favorite part of your favorite book is never the beginning. Probably for any of them. I'm just trying to think. If I think, yeah, this had a great opening, like this opening was amazing. It's not my favorite part of the book though. It's not the part that I remember most. It's not the part that made me fall in love with the book. The beginning is really for like bringing the reader in, setting the tone, getting them along for the ride. If you want to have a prologue to do the same thing, cool. In Strange the Dreamer's case, they brought that prologue in and set it in your mind, set you off with this initial thought hovering over there, and brought you into this part that maybe it's not your favorite part, but is the most impactful part of the story. And they tied that back to the beginning, to the prologue, when they were first talking to you. They arced the story so you were set up to expect something, or like me, to not expect something, and then for it to happen again. It can work very well. And at least to me, I really thought it worked in Strange the Dreamer, that it needed that prologue, that without the prologue you don't get the same experience. You're looking for different things. Your focus is really on Laszlo, who from chapter 1 is set up as your main protagonist, but he's not the only one. It's a dual perspective story. And you get Sarai, and your mind is ready for Sarai to be that central character, to be that main character in this story with the prologue. I'd like to know more of your thoughts on that. I would like to know what your thoughts are on kind of the Western-centric version of storytelling that's so popular on this platform. Like, do you think everything needs to fit into a 3-act structure, or needs to follow the Save the Cat beats? Or do you think that a story can be equally enjoyable and can be equally strong when it goes outside of those norms? Like, let me know, because I'm sure there are people who don't think that. I couldn't think of a story that doesn't do that. But at the same time, if everyone's writing exactly the same way, it's gonna get boring. And there is something very satisfying about a story that does not just come in to hit the beats. Like, yeah, maybe it could be a fun read, maybe expecting something is part of what's good about some literature, and sometimes not expecting it is what's good about other literature. And sometimes that's really the thing that gets me and makes me fall in love with a book, is all of the stuff that I wasn't expecting. More power to the books that go outside of what the Western norm of storytelling is and try to tell something in a different manner. That's all for me today. I hope you're having a great day. I'll speak to you again soon. Good luck to you. Good luck to everyone. Bye.